government continues to call for the release of Guinean President Alpha Condé. He was overthrown in a military coup at the weekend. Condé remains detained by special forces. Meanwhile, the military coup leader has announced that a new government will be formed in weeks.
We have declared very clearly our opposition to what has occurred in Guinea, a purported takeover by a section of the army in Guinea. We object to this. Guinea had an election last year, and we believe democratic processes should be the ones that influence change of government. So essentially, this is a coup, and we object to all coups. The African Union has stated the position of Africa very, very clearly, as has ECOWAS. We believe President Condé should be released. And I hope that he is safe wherever they are holding him. But we believe he should be released, and we do not, as a country, support unconstitutional change of government. We believe that the army must be in the barracks and not trying to run government.
The leader of the coup, which ousted Guinea's President Alpha Condé, has said a union government would be formed in weeks. Col Mamady Doumbouya told ministers who served in Condé's government that there would be no witch hunt against former officials. President Condé remains in detention, but his fate is unclear. Joining us now is Izak Khomo, an African analyst. And Tata Khomo, thank you so much for speaking to us. We've just watched Minister Pandor saying that we do not support coups of any nature, but in a clip that we saw almost 2 minutes ago, there was jubilation from many of the inhabitants of Guinea. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I like what the Honourable Minister said, with no disrespect, but I think they are not focused, with all due respect. Now, it is true that the military should not interfere in the running of government, or should not interfere in politics. That's the most important thing. But if the army is being used by the incumbent, whoever he is, to come and suppress political moves or political processes, democratic processes in the street, then if that army turns around and then it barks like a dog on the person who's sending them to interfere in democratic processes, then basically you find that the whole stance of saying the army should not interfere in government or in politics, it has been put on the side. It should be remembered that the army that's taken over, Col Mamady Doumbouya, he was actually headhunted by Alpha Condé to form the special forces. And this special force, that was in 2018. And this special force was the organ that actually went and put down demonstrations which were against Alpha Condé's move to extend his presidency term to a third term, which was against the constitution, and he went and changed the constitution. But the army should have refused to have been involved in political matters and moves of Guinea. So basically we find that that issue of non-interference, it has been forfeited, because the armies, in fact African armies, and they've been used to foster political moves. So we cannot say that once they take over, they start biting the master, that is not right. I think that is just an opinion of mine.
Tata Khomo, let's rewind 11 years. 2010, Alpha Condé, first democratically elected president of Guinea. Very welcomed excitement across the globe. What's transpired in the last 10 years, and how has he lost favor?
Well, Alpha Condé was a man in opposition. He was always in opposition against Lassana Conte, you should remember. And he was a military man who took over after Sékou Touré died. But then he was forced to come to democratize, and that's due to another institution of Guinea. This is the civil society. The Guinean civil society is real and is live. It actually, through mass action, it forced the democracy in Guinea. But Lassana Conte, he started hanging on to power, and the civil society actually protested. under great cost of lives, and they had their elections. That's after Lassana Conte died. In 2010, they had their election, and up appears our man, Condé, Alpha Condé. But then Alpha Condé, he fell under the influence of big capital. When I mean big capital, I'm talking about the mining conglomerates. The Guinea is a mineral-endowed country. It is very rich in bauxite. It's got the world's biggest single deposit of bauxite. It has got iron ore, huge iron ore deposits. It has got diamonds. It has got gold. It has got uranium. And but you find that the mining conglomerates, they're playing a very important part. And he fell under their influence. It's on record that Alpha Condé had actually been financed on a personal level by these conglomerates to meet his party political moves, things like elections or issues like that.
So the statement, if I may, Tate, if I may just come in there, the statement then by Colonel Doumbouya, who's obviously led this coup, he said the personalization of political life is over. We will no longer entrust politics to one man. We'll entrust it to the people. What do you make of this statement?
There's an element of truth in that. Because what I'm saying, what was happening, is it's on record. And he can talk with confidence because basically when he was headhunted after finishing his term with the French legionnaires, the Legionnaire Army of France, the mercenary army, he was headhunted by Alpha Condé to establish this special force, which was his political wing, and that actually brought power into his hands. Yeah. So there is a truth about that. I mean to say that the biggest thing is just that democracy has got to exist on the ground upwards. Power should not be personalized in the office of the executive or actually of one person. That's the truth.
Now, I don't suppose you have a crystal ball, but do you think the assertions by the colonel that a government will be formed in weeks will pan out that way?
I don't think so, because we do not know what the colonel, who's behind the colonel. That's a very important thing. I mean, the colonel could be actually acting for some other conglomerate.
Well, there are
many people, there are many players who are after Guinea. There's the Chinese, there are the Russians, there are the Americans, there are the French. Yeah, the mining conglomerates, they're all there. So we do not really know. But one thing about Guinea, people should remember, Guinea has got Africa's second most vibrant civil society. That is second to Burkina Faso. People think that basically the colonel has preempted what was in store, what was coming, the action of civil society to tackle Alpha Condé. Now, if the colonel cannot deliver, definitely the civil society are going to tackle him. And the civil society is based in the core of the civil society is the trade unions. They are very strong.
Now, there have been images circulating of the colonel in the U.S. outside of military buildings. And there's also talk of foreign hands, as you've suggested, in this coup. Are you of the firm belief that this is probably what has transpired, or what would have pushed the colonel and his troops to carry out this coup?
Well, I'm not suggesting it. I said that we wait and see, because there's that possibility. Well, we do not know, and nobody knows. We have still got to wait and see what transpires. It's still early days. But for one thing that is there is this, that there are new sets of people, leaders who are coming out of Africa. These are useful people, useful leaders who represent the youth of Africa. Now, the youth of Africa is highly marginalized. It's the most marginalized youth in the whole world. Yeah. And some of these military people, they've got eyes and they've got ears and they've got relatives who are in that situation. I'm looking at a place like Mali, whereby the forces which have taken over, though people are criticizing them, but they're very patriotic and they're very anti-French. And the main move of the Malian army was to come and forestall the French influence in Malian politics. Now, that's the new move in Africa. I do not know if this time round that the Guinean military has taken that stance. We've still got to wait and see. But as for the AU, the theme of non-interference, they should have talked about non-interference the time when the Alpha Condé was using the army to suppress political opponents. Yeah, that's where the whole thing starts. They should not come up when the army comes and takes them out, those who actually falter the constitution and involve the army in politics.
Tate Izak Khomo, thank you for your time. African analyst speaking to us about the situation in Guinea where that coup has recently taken place.